folks, today on Shallibodhran we're looking at the use of the jazz brush, or in this case I have a general use hi-hat brush here. Works quite well, and I'm going to be using a double-ended stick for this today. So for those of you who've already been playing quite a while with the double-ended stuff, very addictive, very easy. And it's nice for this one because specifically you can roll more cleanly. So before I jump in with this, I want to make one thing particularly clear, and that is as you're playing, as you're doing your triplets, two things I want to point out. First is how to think about simply casting the wrist back and out when you're doing the triplet, and then keep playing. So this is a technique you already know for the most part. The second thing is being mindful of how far it's being cast out so you can wind it back in. And normally I don't emphasize trying to play like this. I generally don't. It's not particularly nice for the wrist, but there is a benefit for bending the wrist in this case, because as you're playing, straight wrist to play out and back, you can control the roll back to some degree, apart from just the spin speed. But you can control a kind of amount of rollback just by having the wrist bend. So an example would be you're playing, now we've got the triplets playing out, and you're just trying to roll it. This is going to largely be dependent on what kind of tipper and its dimensions, more so than your wrist dimensions, because of how far it's striking and then that arc between here and here for the triplet. Some cases, absolutely no use of the wrist being bent is going to be, it's just not going to be an issue, because you're already playing, and if you can do the majority of the roll without conducting odd wrist bends to sort of counterweight the spinning tipper, then you're not going to have to worry about that. It's only in cases if you find that the tipper's dynamics, maybe the wood dynamics, the skin dynamics, require a little bit of a bend. But just be mindful of that, because the more you play, the more you can roll it back and play with it, turning it on and off, and curving it to how you want to use it. Now, this little guy here, it's the one I've been using all the time. I used to have a jazz brush and I got rid of it. I prefer this instead, for one particularly good reason, and that is it's thin and it's long, and I can splay it if I want. I can set it to splay, or I can use it at different lengths. So at a full open, pressing it in where I have quite a bit bouncing off the skin, you can actually get different sort of sounds on the rasping. And I'm going to play literally right over top this. So we're going to keep that. Try to rest the whole thing on. It gets tighter, more compressed. Open it a bit. You can hear more rasp, more compressed, and then some of the skin flap as I release it from the, you still get a bit of a flap. Okay, so that first technique is all about laying it like this and then allowing it to lay back and forth, depending on how much of the rasp you want. You can also control that by holding it, and I usually end up holding it this way, so that I can use my thumb on the top here to slide back and forth and do the exact same effect, but I've fixed it so I can do more fine tuning. technique is all about laying it from here and in. This is about doing the same thing, finding a particular spot, and then allowing the thumb to slide in and back like that, okay? The next technique is more about placement. So again, let's start it off again by just playing it. And you can see here is the image, I'm playing right on top of it. Just doing it straight out like this, so nothing fancy. Let's put it right in the middle. I'm going to play in front of it. Heavier, richer bass. But below it. Above it. Below it. Now in just that one exercise, placed in the center, you have effect in front, effect behind, effect above, and effect below. So think about it when you're moving it around. Maybe you want to play a little high up, follow it down. I'm still playing right on top of the rasp. Maybe you don't want to leave it low, leave a big open part on the top. What I really like using these for is polkas, where you have the 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. I like that, which allows you to go. Sorry, not that. Pardon me. There we go. If you want to change it a bit for the polka and just have bump, 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 sort of 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 hop shots, which I like to call them, which are just straight up like that. You're hopping it off the skin. Marches are always great for this, especially if you get into things like Strathspeys, marches and Strathspeys. suggest you try this at a session in a pub because people like snare sounds, and they really like. They'll play like they'll get this, but sometimes a lot of bodhran playing is a little overly complex because they're not used to hearing it and that type of thing. Because it often accentuates on the melody. Well, you can do the same thing by using one of these, and it's more accessible to their ears. Especially if you're in the 4/4 stuff, you can have a lot of fun doing that. Playing it off the front, I think, is more of a swooshy sort of thing. I don't think it's particularly good for that. A word of warning, if you are going to use these sorts of things, I highly suggest you don't use the metal ones. They can be known to scratch up the skin. Plastic, if you do get plastic ones, what I suggest is that you grab them like that, and you just file the edges a little smoother and rounder, just to make sure that your skin is going to get the least amount of abrasion on it. You know, especially if you're going to be playing that sort of stuff. But if you're playing on the back, it's not going to matter too much. You know, try different sizes, different types, different gauge thicknesses. This is really sort of floppy and inexpensive, and I've permanently put a chink in it so that it sits downward on one side and then upward on the other side. I'll typically use the upward side just to play out like this. I also like that it comes out like this. So if I do want to add a knock, you can add a little bit of a knock to it, but try to get something that's going to suit. Also, this little piece right here, see it? See how it attaches? This one has a clear rubber little ring there, which makes sure that the metal doesn't actually hit anything and causes damage. It came with it. It's just good design on that. Other things, like if you decide to go out there testing other types of brushes and you use something like a paintbrush or something like that, don't. They have these metal things on them that hold the bristles in, and they clamp the wood down and all that. It's just a bad idea. And if you do get something like this, put a piece of rubber ring around it or electrical tape or something that covers over any metal on skin contact. You know, you really don't want to risk wrecking the skin on your drum. It's arguably the most important part of the drum, if not the most expensive part of most drums. You know, I certainly know it is on this one. But try it out. The benefits of this sort of playing, you can get a lot of playing with lots of other different types of music, like African music, and you can get in pretty nicely with a lot of Persian music and a lot of Aboriginal music in Canada as well. It works great for Strathspeys, especially if you have more than one bodhran player, because one bodhran player might be playing something like that, and the other person can just cover it. That sort of idea. So you can have some fun with that, especially if you have multiple bodhran players, people playing different drumming parts. So you can kind of work together as some sort of multi-headed drum machine. That works quite well. It's also a great idea if you're at a session and there's too many drum players and you assign parts for people. That can work quite well, and people can kind of figure themselves out. That way they don't feel so left out. Negatives of this playing, it's not going to work on the majority of pieces just because it gets old pretty quick. You know, it's good to have a diverse set tricks in your bag, and I would be a little more conservative using this. But in like African music playing, if you like playing a lot of the Rono no Snooty sort of fusion stuff, go for it. Break it down however you want. It's totally up to you. And so what about the cost on it? What should you be paying? Can you make your own? Yeah, you can always make your own. If you can make a bundle tipper, you can make one of these. Just make sure to file everything down so it's smooth. And if you are going out there and buying, if you're in Canada, a reasonably good one should run you about $15. That's pretty good. There are other versions out there that will run in the 20s and 30s. They're not particularly expensive. They're fairly easy to modify, and they're very, very effective for, again, taking a very simple instrument and giving it some new voicings and whatnot. So give it a shot. That is some use with a sort of, in this case, sort of like a jazz brush, applications to the bodhran, and some things, again, to be mindful. How you're holding it, placement, and how you're affecting it on the back. Also, where you're hitting around it. You want to maybe have a little bit of more bass down. Be wary of where you're putting it so that you can make good use of it in the music that you're playing. And then be judicial with it. Try to use it musically. Don't use it to make noise. There's a big difference between drumming musically and drumming to make noise. So try to be a little judicial when you're using this, maybe a little more conservative. If you're playing outside of Irish trad, then go experiment, have some fun with it, and that's what all this is about. That's what this channel is about, is trying this stuff out as well as building on the basics and the fundamentals. So give it a shot. Let me know how it goes. Have a good one. Bye.